Okay, so we're going to do a spa update 3 years after purchase, and a couple of months ago we had to replace all of the headrests because they had just perished and looked pretty grotty. So 3 headrests, that was about 100 quid, I think, something like that. And we've also, well, we did ask for a rubber seal for this, but this is not a seal exactly. So anything we've been advised to do on this is to trim this off with a sharp knife. This decal is peeling off, so we've ordered a new decal. 25 quid for this decal. Complete and utter rip-off. A few days ago, well, probably a week ago, I noticed that the water level had dropped by quite a bit, even though we hadn't used the spa for a few days. Obviously you lose some from evaporation and splashing when it's actually being used. So it's quite clear that we've got a leak. So I've turned it off and let the water drop. That's where it dropped, the black line. Bit of tape I've put on there. That seemed to be where it wanted to stay at, but now it's dropped even further, and I've got to put another piece of tape onto the water level there, see if it goes down even more. I've taken all the sides off, and I've wiped a lot of it off now, because right down in that area there was a lot of sediment, a lot of water. We've checked pretty much all of the upper section and all of the upper pipes and bits and pieces, and can't see any problem right underneath there. You probably can't see it, but just, let's see if I can point out, yeah, just behind there, that sort of line is all sediment and water beyond it. So it's we've now got a major problem. That is the ozone layer. That is the ozone generator that was changed earlier on in the year that had leaked, but that's obviously not a problem. Noticed a little bit of residue on this pump as well. No idea where that's come from. So we're just a little over 3 years. So I've phoned up the spa company, which is Best Buys in Wellingborough, and said, look, £5,000 spa, I don't think we've had reasonable use out of it in just 3 years. And yeah, that's getting wet because of the rain today. I have to dry all that off. Anyway, so I said, I think we're going to have to ask you to come out and take a look at this. Of course, the other problem we've got here is, if I can just kneel back down again, is they have decided to coat everything in this expanding foam. So pretty much all of it is absolutely locked in, solid in place. Absolutely no idea how it's even possible to get to any of this. That is wet and sediment that I've cleaned up. You can still see the water and some of the sediment underneath that big pipe. So it's all sealed, virtually impossible to get to any of it. Things that are below that level now, well, as I say, we've pretty much ruled out all of the nozzles. I think it's going to be further down. There's 3 suction points in the base there. That's the ozone generator outlet, and then we've got those 2 nozzles there. So it seems quite likely that the leak is right down at the bottom in this tray somewhere, as we've got water underneath there, underneath the other side as well. Anyway, so yeah, having said, look, I don't think this is reasonable use. I think we've got some comeback after 3 years on a £5 spa, and it doesn't even appear to be possible to work on it. Okay, so I've just muted this section of audio because I was a little unfair on the shop. They had questioned me about various things, and I wasn't happy with what they were saying, and I didn't explain it very well in this section of the audio, so I've just removed it. But it wasn't a question of customer service; it was a question of not agreeing with what I was being told by the shop. So back to normal audio now. And when you purchase something of this value, you can expect reasonable use, especially when you've looked after it as well as this one's been looked after. So what we've decided to do is we're going to pay for them to come out. I think it was a 20 quid call out fee and then 25 quid per half an hour. So I'm going to be reasonable and get them to come out and have a look. I'm going to try and get as much of the foam out of the way as I can, but you know, the whole lot is bonded, you know, in place. This has been made in such a way as to make it pretty much irreparable. I mean, the whole lot has been, as you can see, just glued and foamed together. I mean, I don't know how this is. I assume it's made up. Yeah, it must be made upside down originally, and then they probably nail this plastic base on, and then turn it back over, and then just spray this sealant absolutely everywhere. So not only is it attached to all the pipes, it's attached to the insulation material, which is then in turn attached to the plastic base. So it's going to be an utter nightmare to try and get into any of this. There's one of the suction pieces there. That's one of the bits where it, you know, the chrome mesh on the inside, the grill, that's one of them. So I'm going to have to dig out all of that foam and make sure it's not leaking from that. But how you get to take that apart, it all looks pretty securely bonded with God knows what. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. This is the sort of sediment I'm talking about. If I just pick some of this up, there, that's what we've got. It's a wet sort of, if anyone's got a marine fish tank, the salt that forms on the lid, that's exactly the same texture. It's just wet and gritty sediment. So I think we've got a major problem to something that I'll deal with here. I mean, there's pipe works. That's where the is that the ozone input? Yeah, it is. The ozone input is just in there. You can't probably see it on the camera, but it's so tricky to film kneeling down like this. But there's just no signs of any leak from here, so it's got to be as low down as it can possibly be, and it's all covered by the foam. So we're going to have to get in there and see if we can get any of it apart for a closer look. Yeah, big problem, but I think we're going to have to insist on our rights on this case. Don't think it's correct for someone just to turn around and say, well, you've abused it and that's what's damaged it. There's no signs of damage anywhere. It's just a simple leak, which they have made virtually impossible to find and fix. So yeah, I think this will be an interesting one. We'll update you during the course of the week. So just topped the spa up and turned it on and immediately found the fault. Just going to power this back on and lift the lid. It's one of those things where you needed to have it actually running to see the problem, and the hint was in fact this corrosion, sediment, whatever you want to call it, on this pump. Now this insulation is raised up in a hump, and you'll see what that's doing in a minute. Just going to turn this pump on, and you can see water is pissing out of it. So that's the problem. So we're just back again. I've just rung Best Buys, and the main guy is not there till tomorrow, but I'm just looking at this pump number 2 impeller housing. There's actually quite a lot of residue around it and underneath, just in there. There's some residue at the top here. I've absolutely no idea where that's coming from, but it looks like it may be about to fail. If I push my fingers under here, they actually come out soaking wet. So I actually think we've got both impellers leaking, or the impeller housings are both leaking, and that has got to be a warranty issue. You should not have impeller housing failures at 3 years on a £5,000 spar. It's clearly a weak spot. Very simple to change. 4 screws holding the housing on, and just these 2 pipes that are screwed in, no doubt with a O-ring on each. Currently just draining out the spar, and we'll probably remove one of the or pump 1 impeller housing. Just have a closer look at that. So yeah, so the clues were there, the strange residue here, and this really was the big clue, because if you look at it, you might not be able to see there, but this insulation material is raised up. It's in a bit of a hump, with the hump top here. So that's, as that's leaking down here, the water is being diverted off all over the place, but really that residue should have given it away, and with more experience you would instantly know that there's water falling on that, and it's being diverted elsewhere. So yeah, looks like we've got both impeller housings knackered. Certainly this one you can watch the water pour out, as I showed you a minute ago. On the other one I suspect the leak is a little more subtle at the moment. So yeah, there we go. Right, so as this is now completely drained, and we're waiting for a phone call about the impeller housings that one's pouring out when it's on and the other one's leaking. So we had the decal on order, get that in focus, but this is a very weird arrangement. See, I thought this bulging out around the side here was a gasket, and it is, but it doesn't seem to be a replaceable one. This is not screwed in place at all. It is pushed into place on top of this, well, I don't know what it was, some sort of silicon gasket material. And then if we look under here, you can see it's just a sort of hot melt glue. I mean, it isn't, but it's that sort of arrangement. And if you touch where the circuit board is, there's a sort of soft jelly silicon material keeping the water out. Now these buttons, see if this will focus. So I've had to use some alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, to clean up all of the old glue. But if you touch where these buttons are, let me go into the side here, there's a sort of sticky jelly silicon material that's all around these buttons, obviously doing the sealing there. What bothers me particularly though is this area here. You can see it's a smoky finish, and if I press it down, you see that water that's moving around inside. Now that's sort of made it as far as that. What they told me to do was, just for cosmetic reasons, just get a sharp blade and trim up this bit that's sticking out, but I'm more concerned about what's going to happen long term in there. I don't know whether this circuit board is really as well sealed as I'm hoping it is, or whether we're going to have another failure here in the months to come. So when they come out for these impellers, I'm going to get them to look at that and see if that also needs some work doing on it. I'm certainly not going to just whack the decal back over that. Yeah, interesting one. Okay, so just trimmed all that up as they told me to do, so it certainly looks a lot better. I am just a bit concerned about what we can do with that, because it won't be far off getting right in there. So yeah, nice and neat. That's cleaned up quite nicely with the isopropyl alcohol, but yeah, this is going to be quite tricky to put on, because if you cock any part of that up and it gets onto this silicone greasy paste stuff, you're going to get that straight onto the adhesive and it's not going to stick very well. So yeah, going to have to be super careful applying that. Oh, this bloody focus. Yeah, I think what we'll do now is we'll see about getting these impeller pumps off. It looks like it's just 4 screws holding the plastic mount impeller in place, and those big nuts there, but whether that will actually then come off, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see.